Coming from the farthest reaches of the universe to challenge the worst villains on Earth are the most powerful heroes ever in the battle of the Superpowers Collection.
Welcome to the Chronicles, the secret show. This is for all the Patreon supporters out there. We're going to do a little different kind of show. Now, as you know, on the Kenner podcast, we ramble about everything. It's mostly Star Wars. Here on the secret show, we're going to go more into depth about figures. We're just going to talk about one line and tell you all we can about it. And we're going to start off this first secret show with one of the best Kenner toy lines there ever was, the Superpower Collection.
The legendary Superpower Show.
Seeing that the toy market's starting to shift from Star Wars action figures to a more epic hero line like He-Man, Masters of the Universe, Kenner Products met with the DC Comics licensing team and pitched this idea to bring the DC comic book heroes and villains to the plastic world. Sure, there have been superhero action figures in the past, but those were mostly 12-inch figures from Mego. That made it hard to make playsets and vehicles for the line. So Kenner took what they had learned from this very successful Star Wars action figure line and pitched a plan to DC Comics. In 1984, DC Comics dropped their deal with the Mego Corporation and awarded Kenner the exclusive toy rights to the DC Comics and their thousands of characters. Kenner then got right to work on making the Superpowers line a little different than we have seen done before. They wanted to bring a superpower element to the action figures themselves. Taking an idea from their 1980 Indiana Jones line, Kenner added special features to the figures to give them superpowers. By just giving the figures a slightly squeeze, the figures were able to move their legs or arms. This power feature even helped give Kenner the name of the line, the Superpowers Collection. Taking a note from Mattel's Masters of the Universe line, each Superpower action figure came with a mini DC comic book. Once the line was ready for release, Kenner launched its biggest merchandising campaign since the launch of their Star Wars line. Working with DC Comics, they not only launched the action figure line, but DC released a Superpowers comic book line. This 3-part miniseries features characters from the toy line, one for each year of the toy line's release. Hanna-Barbera also produced 2 animated series, Super Friends, the legendary Superpower Show, and the Superpowers team to tie in with the action figures release. Warner Home Video even re-released the Superman, Batman, Superboy, and Aquaman cartoons from 1966 on VHS under the Superpowers label. But that's not all they did to get the line out there in front of the kids. The Superpowers title would also show up on party supplies, underoos, coloring books, games, and almost any other thing you can think of. Even the fast food chain Burger King got into the act when they released the Superpower Cups as part of their kids' meal package. There was even a Superman brand peanut butter that would come with coupons for the action figures or accessories. The line ran for 3 years and had 34 action figures, 8 vehicles, 1 playset, and 1 carrying case. The first wave of action figures consist of Aquaman with Deep Sea Kick, Batman with Bat Punch, Brainiac with Computer Kick, The Flash with Lightning Legs, Green Lantern with Ring Thrust, Hawkman with Flight Wings, the Joker with Madcap Mallet, Lex Luthor with Nuclear Punch, the Penguin with Umbrella Arm, Robin with a Karate Chop, Superman with a Super Punch, and Wonder Woman with Deflector Bracelets rounded out the first series. In 1985, Series 2 was released, with Darkseid with Raging Motion, Darkseid with Shocking Squeeze, Dr. Fate with Spellcast, Firestorm with Atomic Punch, Green Arrow with Archery Pull, Caliban with Beta Swing, Mantis with Thrust, Martian Manhunter with Martian Punch, Parademon with Battle Flight, Red Tornado with Tornado Twist, and Steppenwolf with Axe Chop. And for the final year, Series 3 in 1986 saw Cyborg with Thrusting Arm, Cybertron with Silo Spin, Golden Pharaoh with Soaring Wings, Mr. Freeze with Cold Blast Punch, Mr. Miracle with wrist lock escape, Orion with changing punch, Plastic Man with stretching neck, Samurai with force spin, Shazam with thunder punch, and Trey with rocket launch. And they also released a Mellow A action figure of Clark Kent. A Tower of Darkness playset was planned and even developed, but it never made it to store shelves. It does appear on the action figure card back on the third series of figures. Also planned but never released was figures such as Man-Bat, Shockwave, Blue Devil, Bizarro, Supergirl, John Stewart, Kid Flash, Deathstroke, Black Racer, the Atomic Knight, and more. However, after the third series, the toy line collapsed in 1986. The same year, Kenner also officially canceled the Star Wars action figure line. However, like Kenner's Star Wars line, the Superpowers line found a new life in the 90s as it became a hot collector's item, as kids who grew up on the toy line were now in their 20s and looking to complete their collection and capture some of their youth. In the following years since the end of its line, it has become a classic in the history of toys, and it still influences collectors, kids, and toy designers of today. Also like Star Wars, the toy company Gentle Giant has re-released jumbo-sized action figures based on the Superpowers line. And even rival toy company Mattel released a special series of DC Universe classic figures on a Superpowers style card back. Since 1985, there have been many superhero action figures, but there is still only one true Superpowers line, and that is the Superpowers Collection by Kenner.
Flying lessons for Penguin, fish bait for Luther, can the Supermobile defeat the Lexor 7?
So why did the Superpowers line fail? I mean, it was only released for 3 years. When you look at Star Wars, a very successful line also, it lasted for about 6 years. But the Star Wars line maybe had something going for it that the Superpowers line didn't have. Star Wars released a new movie every 3 years. So about the time the kids were getting tired of Star Wars, a new movie would hit, which would mean new characters, new action figures, new playsets, new ships, and it would relaunch the line. And then in 3 years, when kids were dying out and getting tired of Star Wars, another movie. So it kept Star Wars going a lot longer than most toy lines did. But Superpowers should have went longer than 3 years. And here is my take on why this line failed. Kenner released all their main figures in Series 1 instead of spreading it out. In Series 1 we got Batman, the Joker, Lex Luthor, Robin, Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman. That's not in the complete line, but those are the main figures. That's what people know. They should have saved some of them for later series. Kids all knew them. Kids that didn't watch the Superpowers cartoon or kids that didn't read comic books, they all knew Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, Robin, the Joker. But Kenner released all their main heroes and villains right there in Series 1. So when it came to doing Series 2, you had Red Tornado. I never heard of him back in the day. Firestorm, Steppenwolf, Parademon. I mean, if you wasn't a comic book fan, if you were just a casual kid wanting to play with action figures, you probably didn't know who most of these people were. And by the time you got to Series 3, you have Cyborgs, which is probably more popular now than he was then. Mr. Freeze may be a little popular, but you had Plastic Man. Okay, I'll give you maybe Plastic Man. And maybe Shazam, but then you got Samurai, you got Mr. Miracle, and you've got a lot of others that most people just didn't know. If I was running Kenner back in that day, what I would have done is maybe kept Batman for Series 2. I would have took the Wonder Woman, Superman, maybe Robin, the Joker, Lex Luthor, Batman, and maybe Aquaman. I would have took 7 of those and split them up. I would have done maybe, you know, Aquaman, Batman, and Wonder Woman in Series 2. And then in Series 3, maybe a Lex Luthor, a Joker. Now, you did have to have some of the main guys in the Series 1. That's not what I'm talking about. But I would have cut it down. I would have moved over. I would have saved some of those bigger names for Series 2. And then maybe a little lesser known of the bigger names in the Series 3. I think that would have kept kids interested. But a lot of kids, like I said, they didn't read the comics or didn't know really the cartoons. Kids, they didn't know what a parademon was. They just knew the basics. And there you were, Series 1, you had your basics. Kids that just wanted the basic heroes that they knew. Again, Batman, The Joker, Robin, Superman, Wonder Woman, they got them all in Series 1, so there was no reason for these kids to keep coming back for Series 2 and Series 3. Again, this isn't speaking to all kids, this is speaking about the masses. Because you had the kids that were really into comic books, really into DC, really into superheroes. They knew all these, and they would watch the cartoon. But to get the basic kids, is the Kenner should have saved some of the main characters for Series 2 and Series 3. Now, sadly, I had a Superman in this line, but I never really collected this or played with this as a kid. I've said it before on my podcast. I'm kind of a one-trick pony guy. I played with Star Wars. I didn't play with much else until I started getting He-Man. I don't know, I've always been like that. I wish I played with these because they look fantastic. And that's the best thing about this line. They look amazing. These are probably some of the best looking figures even today. I think they hold up compared to what they're doing out there today. But don't get me started on these Marvel figures because they're all so big. I don't see how kids even play with them. And I don't think they're aimed for kids. And that's what I miss. Toys aimed for kids. I like to collect toys that look like toys. I don't like to collect toys that look like model kits or that look like just like the movie. I want it to have kind of a toy feel when I buy a toy. But that's just me. Everybody's different when they're collecting, I guess.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.
And that's a closer look at the Superpowers line. I hope you enjoyed listening, and thank you again for being a Patreon supporter. We're going to do more on Patreon. This is just the first one. Let me know on Twitter at Kenner Toys or Star Wars Junk some other things you would like me to do. What maybe toy line you'd like me to talk more about next time. And until we talk again, thank you.